Thank you very much, and thank you to Javier and all the team for this opportunity. So I'm a national from Spain, even though for the past 25 years I've been living abroad in different countries. I've been devoted to sustainability 100% of my career, right? Sustainability is a very broad term. Now you can hear things like ESG, environmental, social governance, corporate social responsibility. There's a number of terms, but I've been on this space for the past 25 years, mainly working with large corporations. I started with McDonald's Corporation. Hamburgers, as we used to say, is not fast food, is good food made fast. So it was a very interesting 9-10 years of my life looking at the value chain of all these products: meat, poultry, beef, poultry, swine, fish as well, because the filet of fish, bread, vegetables, etc., etc. Then I moved into the space of energy with biofuels, also coming from crops, so mainly corn, mainly soy. That was with British Petroleum. And then I came back to the food and beverage industry in a very large platform called the Consumer Goods Forum, where I've been working up until last year. This is a big platform that gathers all the retailers and manufacturers from the world. So think about your Walmarts, Targets, Tesco, Sainsbury's from retailer side, and think about the Unilevers, the Nestle's, the Kellogg's from the manufacturing side, right? So helping them understand sustainability in issues like plastic waste, deforestation, human rights, health and wellness, deforestation, etc., etc. And I'll pick on two of them to talk to you today. And most recently, over the past year, I joined the Global Food Banking Network, which is a very big network of food banks leading their food systems division. And I'm also starting a business that is very interesting for you, actually, which is on insect protein for aquaculture and pet food. So that's what I'm doing now. All of these years, I've been exposed to a lot of the issues that happen in the value chain. My idea today is to give you examples on how we faced the challenges coming to us in the industry, some of them completely unexpected. We were not ready for them. So I think your sector is in a beautiful position. You guys have done your homework really well, but you still face a little bit of risk at some point on some PR attacks and some repercussions that might impact. So I'll give you two examples that impacted the most on my career. One is deforestation-free commodities, and the whole set of allegations that the likes of Unilever and Kellogg's and Nestle had to go through, and how we tackle them. And the second one is animal welfare, which when I was in McDonald's, it was a big thing, and it remains a big thing, and it might come to you if it didn't already in different shapes and forms, and what your response could be, right? So starting with deforestation, it's no secret, everybody knows about the rate of deforestation in the world. And if you take any flight across Europe or across the US, you'll see a lot of land that is now agriculture that used to be a forest in the past. So it's what we call indirect land use change. Man has been changing the shape of the earth over the years. So 30 million hectares of forest have been converted now for other uses. It's estimated that thousands of different species will go extinct because we chose to have wheat or corn or soy, but some of the other species went extinct, both flowers, fruits, vegetables, but also animals, of course. Only 10% of the world's forest is now protected today. This is roughly the size of India. This is your national parks, your protected areas. The rest is still in clear. Obviously, tropical rainforest stores a lot of gigatons of carbon, and deforestation alone, the one that continues, is responsible for approximately 15% of the carbon emissions. So back in 2001, 2002, we find ourselves, we, the private sector, FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, with very strong allegations about deforestation. Pretty much, you are responsible for the Amazon and the Malaysian rainforest, Indonesian rainforest because of palm oil. So it was a direct targeted allegation, as if Unilever or Kellogg's were doing this, right? So we panicked at the first instance and tried to analyze the whole issue. So our response was not good. We chose silence because we didn't know what to say. And rule number one in here: silence is something that someone else will use to build a story, right? So silence is never good. Someone else will craft a story and make it grow, right? So in the eyes of consumers, that story started growing, as if, again, Unilever and Nestle were the ones chopping down the forest with a chainsaw. So we started dissecting the problem, right? So what are the reasons to cut down the trees, right? Number one is agriculture. Obviously, there's a very big change in diets in Asia, particularly India and China. So the Chinese have moved from eating more vegetables, particularly rice, into having more beef, more pigs, which means they need to be fed, which means the use of soy has increased dramatically over the past 15 years. China produces 11 million tons of soy. That was more than enough in the early 2000s. Now they need to import 80 million tons of soy, mostly from Brazil and Argentina. Of course, that's a lot of hectares of land that, when the Chinese set up a contract, if I am a farmer in Brazil, I think, oh, okay, I have a bunch of trees near my property. I can just chop them down and put more soy. And that's exactly what happened. And that's when the rates of deforestation went up dramatically. Illegal deforestation started because of the expansion mainly of soy and corn for other uses. So agriculture is the number one driver. There's a change in diets, and farmers need more land to plant their crops and for livestock to graze on. Second one was logging. Trees were being cut down to provide wood. Third was biofuels, as I mentioned, the expansion of energy from corn particularly. Then in many countries, and particularly developing countries, energy comes from firewood and charcoal to heat their homes and cook their meals. And as population was growing, so was deforestation. And then there's a little bit of roads and highways and mining. So all in all, we end up with these 13 million hectares of forest being deforested. So we commissioned back in 2010. So look at that, 2001 to 2010, we had no answer. We were being reactive. We were basically denying and saying, this is not our problem. This is way too complex. So by 2010-12, we started engaging with the likes of Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth and all that, which is normally very difficult to engage with, right? And we got a few companies together and develop a narrative, which is something I invite you to have ready. This narrative around the issue and what are the different responses. So the number one point we put in this narrative is conveying a message of understanding. Rather than opposing, you understand the issue. You tell them, yes, you're absolutely right, deforestation is happening. We have a shared commitment to end deforestation. It's not good for anyone. And that's a reality. So we basically, the title, message one, I understand your point. I don't necessarily share your views around responsibility, but everyone from the private sector to governments and NGOs has a role to play. This is not my issue. This is a complex and systemic issue. So it's not just me. There's a number of actors. So message number two, where are we now on what are the limitations of the current strategy. For 10 years, we weren't able to stop any deforestation. So what's going on in here? There's a very complex system of policies. There's a very complex system of farming. Nobody ever dealt with that. It was only understood that we companies will just go there, chop down and plant trees. And we were removed 7 layers from that. You know, Kellogg's in Michigan or Unilever in London, they don't own land, they don't lease land. They're far removed from it. They have contracts with traders that have contracts with farmers that grow that stuff. So it was a policy sort of angle together with a country forest policy as well. So that putting that on the map publicly through media, through newspapers like the FT, Financial Times, the Guardian, it kind of put us on the map for the right reasons and made Greenpeace, you know, slow down a little bit because we put other actors in the mix. We basically said, look, it's not that we own the land and we do this. It's a much more complex issue. So that was the second message: acknowledge where we are and the limitations of the current strategy. And the third message was basically, what can we do from now on? And when you offer collaboration to these activists, they usually react against, because their mission is to throw the stone to you, but they rarely collaborate with you. So when you say, look, this is complex, I'm a bit lost in here, I will need help, because you seem to know a lot. And then boom, that diffuse a little bit the message as well. And we started talking about figures, we started talking about regions, we started bringing certification similar to the MSc in fisheries. We started bringing a bit more of a complexity into the system, which made the speech go down a little bit. While deforestation will continue, but it was illegal deforestation, so something, you know, beyond our control in that case. Deforestation continues as of today. You saw in Brazil a very big change. Bolsonaro versus Lula, completely different policies. Bolsonaro was all about expanding at the cost of whatever. Lula was more about protecting. So the policy has an incredible impact on that. From the private sector, we needed to make sure that we knew what we were doing. The satellite imagery now, so you know exactly where are you sourcing from and what happens and what are the dynamics of the land. So this I think the level of the degree of complexity now is much better. But now we have a good narrative, we have a good story. The likes of Greenpeace now are changing the target from the big corporations into local governments and illegal logging done by farmers and ranchers and others on the ground rather than at corporate level. The other one that I wanted to talk to you is the animal welfare. You're probably familiar with it because it's a bit closer to you. If you look at the web pages of the likes of PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, you find so many campaigns. You know, from Whole Foods being attacked for the sale of coconut milk from Thailand that is being picked by monkeys. Starbucks also being attacked for upcharging milk versus vegan milk, or vegan milk versus regular milk. Ducks stabbed in the neck and legs cut off for responsible down for coats. Obviously the circus, all the elephants, cruelty in zoos, cruelty to dogs. If you look at some of the upscale brands on fabrics, Kashmir, for example, H&M stopped supporting the abuse of sheep. SeaWorld, all the different aquariums. Needless to say, pets, for example, exhibition of pets, circus again, humane meat, free-range eggs, porks, cruelty. I mean, there's plenty of that. So there's now clear evidence that consumers increase levels of criticism towards animal suffering due to animal husbandry, confinement, restriction of movements, mutilations without anesthetics, transportation, sea transportation. The criticism is higher among particularly women, younger generations, urban generations, and more highly educated consumers. That's where you see most pressure coming in. All the reviewed evidence lately shows that interventions appealing to animal suffering due to farming practices, transportation, slaughter, are sufficiently appealing to influence consumers' willingness to reduce consumption of products, particularly meat. There's been a lot of cases with meat. Even dietary changes in the short term. Seems that this whole animal suffering is a more compelling motivation than health or environmental reasons. So we're seeing a trend here. As societies develop and there's more urban population, this whole sort of animal concerns start growing up. So same thing with this. I recall when I was at McDonald's, there was a big campaign on this topic, and again, you need basically to follow a number of steps when you're being targeted by an activist. Careful, because activists could be investors as well. Given the ESG framework, there's a number of investors. I'm seeing it now as I develop this insect business. I've been approached twice by activists on ethical slaughtering of insects. One might think they have bigger problems than how we slaughter the insects, but yes, there's an entire trend around the ethical slaughtering of insects, and some investors will very much look into this before giving you any money. So this is becoming more the norm, right? So when you're being targeted by an activist on this sort of issue, which can happen in any of your operations, embrace a very long-term plan where these ideas are embedded, right? You might talk about the impossibility to do something now, but in the long run, you need to have something around this. You cannot neglect, you cannot forget, you cannot deny. At some point, you need to include it, whether it's feasible today or not. Just include the notion so they know you have a long-term plan that has this vision of no suffering to animals or ending their lives with a very sort of effective way without any suffering. And it took us in the beef industry a long while to get the cows to be slaughtered in a more ethical way, right? And it included things like the circulation of the air never coming from the slaughter plant into the cows, but rather from their back, so they don't smell the blood, they don't stress themselves. I mean, there's 1,000 aspects on this. So number one, embrace a long-term plan. Number two, you always need to think like an activist shareholder, right? Part of evaluating the company and its long-term plan should be weighing the pros and cons of the common things that those activist campaigns have. So put yourself in the worst case scenario. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense. But going back to my first point on planning the long-term plan, think like a shareholder, build relationships with investors. That's very important. Build relationships with them, ask them for support. There's a lot of research and development on this topic. Engage them, say, look, I don't have all of the answers. I might need help with this. This very association that you guys have, FEAP, is a good example. If you can do something together, if you can sponsor some research that buys time and shows the commitment that you guys have with the issue. And the issues might emerge from anywhere. Fourth point will be acquiring the best tools. From a legal perspective, companies should have the best sort of tools. The narrative that I mentioned for deforestation, hire a peer company that can really build on your story. Because again, from the moment they throw the stone to your reaction, that silence, it's calling for a lot of fake news around the topic. And those fake news, people don't understand the technicalities, and they might start believing it, and the sales start dropping because of those fake news. You probably know it better than anybody, right? But that silence between the attack and your response, it's critical to avoid the creation of additional fake news. And then have a sort of response team, right? You guys don't live in a very difficult environment. I think the attacks you've been facing haven't been too dramatic, but have a response team built within your sort of groups and associations. Be ready for that sort of Monday morning article in a newspaper saying something you don't want to be seen in public, and what's your reaction? Who should be in the crisis management table to draft the response, validate the response, run it by a peer agency and a legal team, and be clear in 24 hours with a response that is something beyond "we have no comments," right? It has to be a more compelling, elaborated story about the topic. So I think I'll stop there. I share those two examples that are not 100% related, but somewhat familiar to you. And I'm happy to chat with you, see what if I can bring any other examples or ideas. I'll be very happy. And thank you again.